With a combined 49 UFC fights between them, dig out your AC/DC shirt from the back of the closet and get ready for an intense fight between the Ultimate Fighter Season 11 winner at middleweight, Court the Crusher McGee, taking on the Ultimate Fighter Season 7 participant. He lost to Amir Sadallah, who ended up winning the season. It's the Immortal Matt Brown. And when you look at this fight, again, what did I say, 49 fights between them in the UFC?
It sounds like a Wilt Chamberlain number.
Matt Brown's 16-3 in the UFC. Court McGee's an even 10-10. But if you look at it overall, I mean, Court McGee's beat Robert Whittaker in 2013. Matt Brown went on a 7-fight unbeaten streak, fought in a main event against Robbie Lawler in San Jose, California. Lost. But ultimately, it was a fight of the night. And if you look at it for both these guys, Matt, the highs have been highs, the lows have been low, and they've each had kind of similar struggles outside of the cage that they've overcome. But if you look at it, and I'm sure John Anik or Brendan Fitzgerald will touch on that way too much in the first round, but when you look at the fight, Matt, these two guys, at this period of their career, it's a well-matched fight, akin to...
I hate to see them...
Ed Herman and Zach Cummins from a few weeks ago.
Perfect example, and that's the thing. Both these guys have the check engine lights on in their career, right? There's not a lot of gas left in the tank. And for Matt Brown, it has been a case of that for quite a while. I remember the Jake Ellenberger fight kind of being the first domino to fall. When he did go on his big losing streak, Cowboy was the initial loss right after that. So he has kind of stumbled along the way. But you can't forget all of the positives along the way. And that's the thing. Even for Brown, when he's losing these fights, it's not like he's getting washed, right? He will have positives. He's landing those classic elbows on the inside. We're always going to remember the elbows no matter what. I'm going to talk more about those with the Dirty Bird next, of course. But what I like about this matchup is the fact that neither guy has a ton to gain, right? Like, this is just one of those fun fights that, hey, you're going to fondly remember both guys when their careers are over. Maybe they won't be Hall of Fame caliber fighters, but they're like 40 war players in baseball, right? They're not going to be in the Hall of Fame, but if you were a fan of the team that they were on when they played there, you think they were awesome. Like, I love Curtis Granderson. You probably love Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista. Like, players like that still deserve a spot in your heart. Both these guys belong in that category.
A couple of Carlos Delgados.
The thing about this fight, though, that does concern me is, for Matt Brown, what's been the big issue throughout his career no matter what? The takedown defense. We even saw Carlos Condit take him down when Carlos Condit's Achilles heel has been his own wrestling defense. So if Court McGee can get behind the wrestling and really initiate that wrestling early, I could see him being able to go out there and really dominate for 50 minutes. But on the flip side, what does Court McGee struggle with? Straight shots down the middle do land on him. And yes, Matt Brown doesn't have the one-hitter quitter power he used to, but if he can start landing 2, 3, 4 of those shots in a row, Court McGee's going to get wobbled. And even though Matt Brown's 42, I still think he can finish Court McGee at this stage of his career.
So the 5-on-in is really telling for both of these guys. So we'll start with Court McGee, the Ultimate Fighter winner. He loses to Sean Brady. He gets completely mollywopped with the wrestling. He loses to Carlos Condit in a fight where Condit out-wrestled him in spots and Condit outstruck him on the feet. Court McGee landed a good shot, but McGee didn't wrestle. His Twitter just was up in arms. Then Court McGee went out and outlasted Claudio Silva,
who was at the end of his career,
who looked so tired. And then he went out there and he was able to get a win over Ramiz Brahimaj, which was a giant one. He looked really good in that fight. And then his last time out against Jeremiah Wells, he got floored. And that was only the second finish loss for Court McGee, going back to when he got finished by Santiago Ponzinibbio in the UFC. For Matt Brown, the 5-on-in, he looked great against the Killer Bee, Ben Saunders.
Those elbows on the ground.
Big elbows. Miguel Baeza dropped him a few times and finished him.
He hurt Baeza, though, early in that fight, too.
Carlos Condit was able to put on the wrestling shoes and beat Matt Brown. Matt Brown then went out and finished Diego Lima, which was a giant surprise. Both these guys fought Diego Lima. And then his last time out, Matt Brown out-wrestled Bryan Barberena, but got outstruck in a fight that was in his hometown in Ohio, or, you know, it was close around in Ohio. And in that one, you thought, okay, Matt Brown gets an opportunity to go out on top. It's a fight of the night, even though he loses, but he's still going to fight. So that was a little over a year ago. If you look at it for Brown, still training at Immortal Martial Arts, his gym with, my God, I mean, Mark Coleman, shirt off on the Instagram.
Doing the darn thing.
Just a couple of guys coaching and living a good lifestyle. But when you look at a fight like this, Matt, and I look at both these guys, I mean, Court McGee out of Agima Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, the guy can do it. And when he does take guys down, he can really force himself on. It just... what game plan do we get out of Court McGee? And vice versa for a guy like Matt Brown. He was takedown heavy against Barberena. That's to be expected. You saw that for poor Barberena's last time out. He got taken down and got finished. But if you look at it for a guy in Matt Brown, his last time out, he's chasing a lot of his strikes. He wasn't able to cut the cage, and he was really square in a lot of his approaches. So we'll see if the Muay Thai can be there for Brown. We'll see if the wrestling is there for Court McGee. I mean, if you look at it for Brown, 8 bonuses in his UFC career, tied for second all-time in UFC history with knockout wins. Number 1 is 13 with Derek Lewis. Matt Brown has 12 knockout wins in the UFC. If you look at it, tied for 4th all-time with Dustin Poirier and the Spider, Anderson Silva, with 14 finishes. So a lot of big-time things there. But both these guys kind of in the twilight of their career. Court McGee is favored to win the fight at about a 2-1 clip. If we have a look at the total votes on Tapology, I think it's going to be a little closer. I'm going to say over under 62.5% Court McGee.
I'm going to say over.
You're going to say over. Oh, look at that. 636 total votes.
Hot take, I guess.
65% Matt Brown, 38% by decision, 57% by knockout, going off that really quick knockout that Jeremiah Wells had, I would assume, over Court McGee. For the 35% that I'm McGee, 83% by decision. So do you think Court McGee is going to win a decision in this one?
I'm going to make an overly specific prediction on this fight. I think it's an awful matchup for Matt Brown, honestly. I really do think Court McGee's going to win a unanimous decision.
I think Matt Brown blows him out of the water.
That's fine, but this is the problem. Court McGee, even though he does get hit clean in a lot of his fights, doesn't have a bad shin, even at the age that he's at currently. And Matt Brown has never been a one-punch guy. Even in his prime, he was on a 7-fight finish streak. That was like prime Matt Brown. He was going out there dusting fighters. I just think Matt Brown's wrestling defense is going to be enough of an issue for him in this fight so that he won't be able to have enough success on the feet. Now, I still think Brown, I agree 100% with what you said. I didn't like the striking that we saw out of him his last time out. I still think he's the better striker in this fight. I still like him going downhill. I like him in the clinch. I just think the wrestling factor of Court McGee is going to be overwhelming enough for him to win this fight.
Yeah, I mean, including the Robbie Lawler, and since that fight, he's 4-8 is Matt Brown. If you look at it for Court McGee, I mean, since 2013... and when he fought Robert Whittaker, he's 5-8. So again, both guys in the twilight of their career. But for me, with Court McGee, he's got to be committed to the game plan, like he was against Brahimaj, like he has against some of these other guys, where he's been that litmus test of, okay, I keep the fight standing. I have pretty good 1-2 leg kick. That's what you're going to see out of Court McGee. He can square himself up a little bit, and he does accept straight shots. That's why I think Matt Brown's going to have a lot of success with that long leg kick that he has, with the nice combinations, and then he can mix in that elbow or those elbows as well. For me, I do like Matt Brown in this fight. I don't think that, even though he has a similar style, and it is a former opponent, Tim Means. I don't know if Tim Means is going to be able to do the same thing.
How big of a side do these guys
Morono
let out when they sit down?
It's probably a pretty big one. And then if you consider the coach for the Immortal, the Crusher, the Hammer, Mark Coleman, probably a big side too. Matt, we're split on the pick. I've got Matt Brown. You're going with Court McGee. Let us know who you have in this welterweight legends matchup. A big-time one that we are very excited about. The next fight, the Dirty Birds taking on the Great White. It's Tim Means taking on Alex Morono. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.